I still send out those emails and see somebody that their work is great, inspires me, and I just shoot them an email and say, hey, love your work. Would love to work on something with you, learn how you kind of go about this or do this or whatever. And doing that is actually how I got some of the projects that I am most proud of.
Hello, Pencil Kings and Pencil Queens. We are back. This is episode 44. Today we are talking to Byron Slaybaugh, another one who had worked at Real Effects. We've been going through the whole roster of Real Effects, and I think it's just awesome that a studio that I'd heard of a little bit before, but now I feel like I could almost walk into Real Effects and start giving high fives and people would know who I am. Or maybe they wouldn't. When I said my voice, they've heard my voice before, they would know who I am. So I think that's really cool. So I want to welcome Byron to the call. How are you doing today, Byron?
I'm good, man. Don't usually get up this early, but got my orange juice and my water, and I'm good to go.
Nice. Yeah. I'm literally flying. I just bought a PlayStation 4, as I was telling Byron before. So if I'm speaking quickly, it's because I'm on a natural endorphin high of getting a PlayStation, but I can't play it yet because I'm in Germany and I can't figure out how to change the TV. I'm a cosmic joke at this point that I've got my new toy, but I can't put the keys into the ignition to turn it on and play with it. But that's me. Why don't we start? Let's go back to before you got your first quote-unquote real job. And just to give a little bit of backstory here, Byron is a motion designer, and we'll dive into what that is in a little bit. But first, I want to start off with the very beginning. Where were you? What were you working on? How did you get your foot in the door in the beginning?
Well, first of all, sorry about your PlayStation woes. Immediate high followed by an immediate low. Whenever I first decided this was the path I wanted to take, I was so overwhelmed just with options as far as where I wanted to go with the art career. When I narrowed that down, it almost seemed like there was even more to sift through because it was just this overwhelming amount of information and so many different places I could go to learn these things, and schools, universities, certification programs, all this stuff. And so it was a lot of narrowing down for me. I was actually considering psychology after high school as well. I remember I had gone to an orientation at one of the community colleges, and I was about 15 minutes in. I said, no, I walked out. I was like, this isn't something I want to do. So I immediately took that off the table. It was more just like I want to see, but I knew deep down like this was the career I wanted to choose. Well, man, I don't know. How far back do you want to go here?
I guess the question that I would ask is, how much of an artist would you consider yourself at that point in time? Because I find people usually fall into two camps. One is they've been drawing basically since they were a kid and they knew that that's what they wanted to do. And then the other camp is they kind of just discover art at some point, like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And then they just start kicking butt and getting serious about it.
I mean, I guess I would be in the first camp. I was always kind of drawing when I was younger. I remember going over to my cousin's house and we would make these little clay, statues and do the little stop motion animation. And it's like I kind of did a whole wide gamut of things as I was growing up. But I always drew, always into some type of artistic endeavor. But in high school, my freshman year, everybody was kind of picking, in my art class, we're kind of picking specific things to do. And right around that time was whenever I was kind of starting to learn about Photoshop. So my art teacher graciously gave me a book, set me down at a computer and said, here you go, if you have any questions, you can work on this as your project, because everybody else was either drawing or doing something else. And so I started messing around with that, and that just got me started thinking about the whole computer graphics direction and whatnot. And it wasn't until my junior year in high school that we were watching Toy Story, and that kind of blew me away. And I said, well, wait, that was the first time that I made a connection between having this as a viable career and just something I like to do on the side. I always had very supportive parents and very supportive family, and was always supported in dreaming and thinking about the options that most people are cut off from. And I said, I think this is what I want to do. I mean, people get paid to do that, and that's their job. From that point on, it was how, this is what I want to do. How do I get there?
And what was your art like, when you first started with Photoshop? For me, I remember it was space scenes. I would just make these spheres that kind of look like planets and then some stars, and I had a little Starfield generator plug-in or something. And I just thought I was the cat's pajamas. What was your like high school intro Photoshop art, if you're willing to say?
Yeah. Oh man, it's kind of embarrassing to talk about, but I really liked the plastic wrap filter way too much. I was putting on everything, things that didn't even make sense. I had like, these like Dragon Ball Z drawings that I would have, and I would scan them in, and then like remember putting the plastic wrap filter on those because it made it look like they were shiny and kind of 3D looking.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't advise doing that because it looks
You got to
terrible.
start somewhere.
Yeah. I was really just trying to get in and not be afraid of the program, and just make as many mistakes as I could and learn filters, whatever, different types of techniques or whatever. And so most of it was just kind of comping stuff, I would say. I would take like a picture of a car, and then I would pen another picture out and try to make it and put it in that scene and try to make it look like it was in there. And then other things I would just like scan my drawings in and try to color them. And
It sounds like what you were doing. Have you seen that You Suck at Photoshop series?
Yes, that's exactly. Yeah, he's like, no, don't go for the magic wand. I know you're gonna do that. Stop. No, those things are amazing.
You're coming out of school. You're considering your options. What option did you end up choosing?
I actually went to Art Institute in Dallas.
Are you from Dallas originally?
Yes and no. I was born in Houston, but then my family ended up moving to Anchorage in Alaska.
Oh, wow.
So I actually grew up there, and then we moved back when I was about 8. And then moved back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And then so I had been there ever since I moved to LA probably about 3 years ago. Man, I was looking at, like Ringling. I was looking at RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, and Savannah. All these different places. I actually went out to Academy of Art College in San Francisco. That's the one I was really.
Oh, me too.
Oh, really?
But it was too expensive.
Yeah.
Like 40 grand.
Oh, man.
I was from Canada, so I wasn't just out of state. I was out of country, and it would have been 40 grand. And as soon as I saw that, I just gave up. I gave up on the sort of San Francisco dream.
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, the tuition on top of housing, on top of all that stuff, and it's just kind of overwhelming. So I remember I was in my room, and I was kind of down because I didn't come from a crazy wealthy family or anything. We got by on modest means, and I was going to have to pay for school myself, and so I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I applied for so many grants and different types of scholarships and whatnot, and I don't remember getting a single one. I didn't have the best approach to schooling and stuff. My mind was always elsewhere. So, but I was sitting in my room. My mom came in and she gave me a brochure that she'd found for an art institute, and she's like, I know it's not your top choice, but it might be worth checking out. So we went and checked it out, and it was the best option that I had, and it seemed like a place where I could learn to do what I wanted to do. So I went there.
I'm fairly down on university in general, but for you, I think I've heard good things about the Art Institute. I've heard bad things about the Art Institute, but what was your experience like? I feel like it's really dependent on the student.
You're right. You could ask people that were right next to me when I graduated, and they have a totally different experience. I think a lot of it has to do with perception. A lot of students that I went to school with thought their hand was going to be held through the whole process. When it wasn't, they got frustrated, and a lot of them would just give up. My very first quarter, very first class, the teacher said, I want you to just look around here. By the time you get to fifth quarter, over half of you in this room aren't going to be here. Sure enough, come fifth, sixth quarter, people are dropping out, pretty heavily. So, and I think that's because they weren't getting the attention they thought they were going to get, in the sense of you would get an assignment, and if you had questions and you wanted to seek it out, you could, but the teacher's not going to come over and hold your hand and like baby you through this. And that's also part of the schooling. Mm-hmm. But I got a lot out of it. My honest opinion is if you could do this stuff out of high school, you wouldn't have, there wouldn't be any need to go to a specialized school like that. The reality is there's a lot that happens in going to, an art school in particular, because you're around like-minded people who have the same goals and trying to aspire to the same things. Could possibly be somebody who hires you or helps get you, a gig or your first gig or whatever. And an animator at Real Effects, Randy Hayes, I think he was a year after me or maybe 2. He got in touch with me after I'd already graduated and had already been working for a little bit. And he got in touch with me, and we just kind of kept in touch over the years. And he was actually my link into Real Effects. So the connections are great and pay off. And he's just a great guy anyway, to begin with. But the teachers, as far as their experience in the field and whatnot, I think it was, speaking candidly, it was lacking. Mm-hmm. Especially being in Dallas, a lot of them that was kind of the source of frustration of a lot of students. And some of them had experience, but they hadn't been in the industry for over a decade, mm-hmm. And things change all the time. So a lot of the information was not correct. It was a source of frustration for me. I didn't have any other options. Like, this is the best thing I can get right now. So I'm going to make it the best that I can,
Yeah, definitely.
So ideally, I would have been able to go elsewhere and get other training, but where I went, was definitely enough to get me on the right path. So I know it's not a huge endorsement for the Art Institute, but sorry,
I think it also falls on the student, because there are lots of books and there are lots of resources, and today there's more resources than ever. There's really no excuse, I feel, other than motivation, maybe, that, I mean, even me, even you, even like anyone I've had on the podcast, I'm sure if somebody's listening is like, man, I really want to have that job that person has, you could reach out to them and just say like, hey, I heard your episode. I've been working on this thing. What do you think? And you send them a link so that it's easy for them to look at it, and they will more than likely be very generous and say like, okay, this, you need to work on this. And they might only give you one sentence, but hey, now you have like one little inkling of a connection to somebody, and you can build on that over time and continue to improve. And so, yeah, there's really no excuse, I think.
Exactly. I mean, that's a great point, because I mean, I've gotten plenty of random emails like that, and actually, I mean, I still send out those emails. I see somebody that their work is great and inspires me, and I just shoot them an email and say, hey, love your work. Would love to work on something with you, learn how you kind of go about this or do this or whatever. And doing that is actually how I got some of the projects that I am most proud of,
Oh, wow.
There were a couple directors that I had been following their work for a while, and they had this Kickstarter campaign, and I shot them an email and was like, hey, I've been following you guys for a while, love your work. If you have anything coming down the line that, could work on, that'd be great. And then this project in particular, I was like, if you need any help on that, I would love to help out. And they reached out and said, hey, man, love your work, and, we'd love to have you on this. So initially my hope was to kind of get on set with them and kind of learn stuff. They said, well, we've already shot, our principal photography and already, done our production, but we would still love to get you on this. So even having the experience that I have, I'm not shy to reach out to people that are doing something that I want to do or would like to do or would like to learn. That's a valuable skill to have no matter what, because you never know. Like you said, I mean, they could be super busy and never get back to you, but that's probably the worst thing that could happen is they just don't get back to you. So, actually, no, the worst thing is you don't email them or you don't get in contact with them, and then you just never know. So that's a good point. That's a good point.
Just when you say that, I feel a little bit small, because I know that there's people that I've wanted to reach out to, both artistically and professionally. I mean, for what we do at Pencil Kings. And I feel that I put roadblocks in front of myself. Like, I can contact Jamie Hewlett, the designer, the illustrator who created Gorillaz, mm-hmm. the music band.
Oh, yeah.
I can reach out to Jamie Hewlett once I have 10,000 people listening to every podcast episode that we do.
Right.
That's definitely holding me back. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I'm identifying some limiting beliefs that I have in this. And for people listening, you might feel like you have people that you want to reach out to, but you're not for some reason. And ask yourself, why are you really not? And what do you have to lose? And what do you have to gain? And I think you really hit the nail on the head. Is the worst thing that can happen is that you don't contact that person, because then nothing happens for sure. It's no reason to beat yourself up over or whatever, but we're our own worst critics, and we tend to have that inner voice that's like, no, you're not good enough. No, they wouldn't want anything. They wouldn't even respond. And these thoughts start going through your head. But yeah, man, if you could just push that out and just everybody has somebody that they're following or somebody that they're looking up to. I mean, you mentioned that designer. I mean, it's like it's just setting the inner critic aside. But that's a good point that you made too, is that we limit ourselves in the sense of, okay, once I get to this level,
then I can do this. And if you think about it from an artistic point of view, maybe you say, okay, well, I'm not going to reach out to this company or to this studio or to this person until my artwork is a certain degree. And I think there's some truth to that, but also you could be reaching out to them now, and you never know what possibilities could open up, just at where you're at now. They could always come back and just give you feedback and say, we don't have anything open now, but hey, I would change this and this, or maybe, work on this or whatever for future reference. So, it's hard to set that inner critic aside, but it's important to do that every once in a while.
I have something more. Something none of your dry as dust professors and routine-ridden doctors have. Love, devotion, passion.
All right, let's change gears a little bit. First of all, can you give us just a 1-minute overview of what a motion graphics designer is? Or I'm not sure if that's even what you would call yourself, but what kind of work do you produce so that people can relate to it?
Since the field has been developing for a while, and a lot of people don't really know how to handle it, or, like you said, exactly what it is. The title I have now is just animator. You wear a lot of hats depending on the project. So I've worked on things from award shows, video games, to, film, TV, commercial, all that. And it's like, I guess the official title would be motion design, but I usually classify myself as animator.
Okay. And is this what you graduated from school as a motion designer / animator, or was it something else?
Actually, it was something else. I mean, it's not too far off, but I went. They have different tracks there, as they call them, and I chose to go the direction of compositing and visual effects. And then when I graduated, I realized Dallas isn't really the visual effects mecca of the world. I realized, okay, well, I kind of want to do something that I enjoy, but also that I can actually, get a viable career out of in the market that, was Dallas. So in the Art Institute, I still did all the motion design classes, character animation, modeling, rigging, like you go through all that stuff. So I still had an exposure to those things, which definitely helped me out for a lot of my, first gigs. So, but yeah, I switched gears and didn't focus so much on the compositing visual effects aspect and started going more of like the design animation route.
So when you say animator, are you still doing like character animation, or what? There was a time when you were an animator and people threw all kinds of weird stuff at you, and today you're doing spaceships and tomorrow you're doing puppy dogs. But I feel like now things must be getting more specialized, or at least at the higher level. Have you found that?
I have. I do character animation, but not to the extent of full-on 3D character animation, that somebody would be doing for feature, not to the level of Disney or, anything like that. But just on the previous project that I worked with Justin Harder, I did a lot of hand-drawn 2D animation. I love the 2D kind of traditional hand-drawn animation. And so I try to use that when I can. I've used that quite a bit on a lot of different projects. Sometimes it'll be just effects based. So I'll just be drawing like liquidy water effects. I remember doing that for a couple Gatorade spots here and there. And so the last year to 2 years, my bread and butter has kind of been more of the heads-up display UI animation work. I didn't work on this, but it's what people usually know. It's the stuff that's like inside of Iron Man's mask. All the little UI elements and stuff, and anything that people are touching or interacting with in film or commercial or whatever has been my bread and butter. Actually, last year it was just like constantly. I was getting booking after booking after booking for that stuff. So I had to kind of take a break for a while because I was kind of getting lost in that world, and I didn't want to pigeonhole myself either. To just be like that guy. So
I think what's really cool about that, you go to the theater, you grab your popcorn, you sit down, you're watching Iron Man, and then he's flying in his suit, he's got his heads-up display, or he's like assembling something in his garage, and he's got that cool 3D thing that's going on. It's actually somebody's specific job just to do that. There's so many people and their aspirations like, I want to work at Disney or nothing else, that's the end game. And for me, it's just like, man, we live in this amazing universe that's just begging to be designed or to have some kind of like artistic touch to make it more beautiful.
Right.
To the shoes you wear, furniture in your house. There's just so much stuff that needs to be designed. And if your goal is like, I'm going to work at Disney or bust, it's like, man, you've really set yourself up. It's like trying to climb Mount Everest on your first ascent or your first hike.
Yeah.
You haven't even really figured out what climbing means. You're like, no, I'm doing it Mount Everest. Let's go, baby. And you realize that, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought, or I don't know what I'm doing. But meanwhile, if you just look around, there's all kinds of opportunities for you to make a difference and to have your art like touch other people's lives, which is so amazing. So,
I mean, that's a great point. I mean, I can't even begin to list off, I mean, how much need there is for specific areas just like that. You're sitting there watching something and it doesn't really even dawn on you that that's somebody's particular job to do that. I mean, there's people whose job it is solely to just make like dust effects and water effects and, effects artists. And it's hard to do. It's not how my brain works, but but there's people who are amazing at it and just incredible results from these guys. And so, I mean, there's like, you think about Disney and people go, oh, I want to work at Disney or I want to work at Pixar. And that's great, but what do you want to do?
Yeah, exactly.
What is it that you want to do? Do you want to be a character animator? Do you want to be a layout artist? Do you want to be a story artist? Do you want to be a modeler or rigger? I mean, there's so many areas. Okay, you want to work from, that's good. That's a good start. Let's narrow it down and then figure out how you can start now to work towards that. Don't just jump the gun like right off the bat. And I guess for anybody listening who has just had the blessing to kind of jump in the deep end, so to speak, maybe you got an internship or something there, or even just a job, maybe a studio like Disney, or you kind of get your dream job right out of the gate. I would advise if that if somebody like that is listening and in that position, just take advantage of it and don't take it for granted, because learn as much as you can, soak up as much as you can, and just enjoy the ride. But it's a continual process and growing.
It brings back memories when I got started, and I was so grateful to be working somewhere where I could do 3D, because it just seemed like a pipe dream to me. And when I got that job, I really tried to be the first one in the office so that when people got in, they're like, holy, why is this kid here? What is he doing?
Yeah.
You can see pretty quickly like who are the real standout people. I started asking them, like, what are you working on? Like, oh, what are you doing there? How did you make the lighting on this so good? And then in your spare time, try make something cool and show them and say like, hey, I tried to make this thing. Could you take a look at it? Like, I just did it on my off time. I wasn't getting paid or anything, but I'd really love your input. Then, there's an opening on that person's team, and now you're working directly with that guy or girl that you looked up to, and you're working under them and learning even faster now. There's just so many opportunities, but you got to take it and you got to be hungry and kind of realize it. You can actually advance fairly quickly, I feel, but you got to, put in the work.
Yeah, exactly, man. Work ethic is a massive part of it. Like you said, annoying people, it's kind of what you're there for, is to learn and to grow in that and to annoy people and, get as much information as you can out of it. But like you said, work ethic is huge. And just, how much you really want this and how hungry you are for it. Those are the kind of people that stand out, because that they're going to do everything they can to try to make the product be, or the project be what it needs to be. Yeah, man, work ethic is huge.
If you have a chance, I really encourage you to check out Byron's website. He's got some very beautiful art and a lot of video work there, which is always good to kind of just kick back. Why don't you tell people what your website URL is and anywhere else that's a good place to find you online or to reach out if you're open to that?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's just hellobyron.com. And from there, there's you can find on the About page. I have a link to Twitter and Flickr and a couple other things on there. So,
all right, cool. As usual, we'll have show notes for this. So some of the different places that we mentioned on this, some of the schools and studios and whatnot, those will all be listed at pencilkings.com/Byron Slaybaugh. So that will be BYRON-SLAYBAUGH. Thanks so much, Byron, for being on the call. We actually covered a lot of awesome things. If somebody's in, I know that graduation time is just coming up, so this is pretty, timely advice for people.
If I can just say this real quick.
Yeah.
I didn't get my first internship until literally the day that I graduated. I met the guy at the ceremony who was an Art Institute alumni, and he just came because he had a couple friends. I met him there, and he was like, hey, man, can you come in this week? It was like that close. So, and then he didn't even have a computer for me to work on. I had to bring my own computer. They were just getting started and all this stuff. And, course, he wasn't able to pay me. I think I worked for like them and another studio for like 3 or 4 months for free. So it's, it can be rough, but just take whatever opportunity you can have. So
awesome. Yeah, thanks a lot, Byron. And if you're looking to get started in art and you're looking to learn from professional artists, come over to Pencil Kings. Check us out. We've got tons of courses. I think we've got over 60 courses now. And we would love to have you inside our private art community where you can learn and grow, and I'll be in there helping people and a bunch of other people. So it's a very cool place to be. Once again, thank you, Byron, so much for being generous with your time and your advice. And I hope somebody listening takes some action on something that you said and then emails you and said, hey, I did the thing.
Yeah, please.
And I got the result. And that's gratification.
That'd be awesome.
All right, take care.
All right, thanks, Mitch.
Demands patience, skill, years of practice.
Ah, you talk like a fool. I would trade a century of practice for an ounce of inspiration.